Om Tat Sat. Welcome to Gyan Bhakti channel from Swami Nikhilananda. My humble prostrations to the all-pervading Brahman, to my worshipful Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, to the Ram Parivar and all sages and saints, and to each of you, divine soul, watching today's satsang. We are currently studying the Holy Scripture, Mysticism of Ramayana. Commentary is by my Guruji, Swami Jyotirmayanandaji Maharaj, narrated by myself, Swami Nikhilananda. So currently we are studying the story of Pratap Bhanu, and let's continue about his delusion and how he was tricked. The king was tempted to enter into a project of overpowering the Brahmins, who are symbolic of the forces of Sattva. Whoever tries to overpower Sattva must eventually be defeated in his movement. It is a spiritual law that Sattva cannot be defeated by Rajas and Tamas, and nothing can oppose that law. So the Brahmins, which are a sign of purity, represented Sattva. Whether a movement against Sattva occurs within an individual in a subjective manner or in society at large in an objective manner, that movement must be defeated. Although goodness may sometimes seem to be overpowered by evil, eventually goodness will triumph. Satyameva jayate. Dharma always sides with the truth. That is the meaning behind that statement. Truth alone triumphs, not falsehood. Truth may seem to be overpowered for a while, but ultimately it rises in all its glory. Goodness is innate in the spirit, and all efforts directed towards overpowering goodness will ultimately be defeated by the spirit. So let's now study the three demons that practice austerity. When they were young, Ravana, Kumbhakarna and Vibhishana practiced austerity or tapa with the idea of acquiring great power. The austerity was so intense that Brahma appeared before them, ready to grant each one of them a boon. Brahma is the creator. When he turned to Ravana, that mighty demon said, "May I become indestructible. May no one be able to kill me except monkeys and human beings." Ravana added that clause to the end of his request because he considered monkeys and human beings quite insignificant and inferior to himself. His fear was only from the gods and higher beings. And Brahma said, "May it be so." And Ravana was smart. He said that because he knew that you could not ever be invincible. That is not within Brahma's power to give. So he had to find a way to say, okay, let them kill me. But he thought he was being very cunning and smart when he asked that only men or monkeys could do that. Then Brahma turned to Kumbhakarna. That huge and nasty fellow loved to eat more than anything else, and he especially loved to eat human beings. Human beings were like tender delicacies for him, and he longed to spend all his waking hours devouring them and hardly stop at all to sleep and interrupt his feast. Thus, Kumbhakarna had planned to ask Brahma to let him stay awake for 6 months of the year and then sleep for only one night because he enjoyed eating so much. Realizing the intention of Kumbhakarna, gods approached goddess Saraswati, the goddess presiding over intellect and speech, and asked her to twist the intellect of Kumbhakarna so that he could not utter this terrible request which would surely destroy the world. The goddess was delighted to do so, and the moment Brahma appeared before him, Kumbhakarna became suddenly confused and said, "May I sleep for 6 months and then keep awake for only a single day?" So this was the grace of Saraswati through her wisdom. And in the Ramayana later, she also did the same thing with Manthara when she deluded her intellect, which we will cover at a later time. Eagerly Brahma said, "May it be so," and granted the demon's request. Now, When Brahma turned to Vibhishana, that virtuous demon asked only that he should become a devotee of God and that his devotion should continue to increase day by day. Highly pleased, Brahma granted the boon. Unlike his brothers, Vibhishana remained a spiritual and saintly person. But since he was the youngest, he was unable to control his brothers and their demoniac propensities. So, mystically, the three demon brothers represent the three gunas that keep the soul confined to the world process. Ravana is the embodiment of avidya or ignorance, that is active. He is rajas predominating ignorance. Kumbhakarna is tamas, predominating ignorance, and Vibhishana is sattva, predominating ignorance. So ignorance is avidya, and then there are the three gunas of sattva, rajas, and tamas, represented by Ravana, Kumbhakarna, and Vibhishana. The three brothers exist in every human being. These three gunas are in all of us. Ravana in the form of the restless ego, Kumbhakarna in the form of inertia, dullness, and delusion, and Vibhishana in the form of spiritual sensitivity, which at times remains overpowered by Ravana. On the basis of these, there arise numerous demons whose desire is to destroy everything that is virtuous and divine. In order to look for demons or gods, an aspirant does not have to travel to heaven or hellish worlds. He just has to look within himself. If one's divine qualities, the gods, manifest, and in one's grosser personality or traits, anger, hate, greed, then the demons manifest. So it's all within our own body itself. Every human being is a blend of both these subtle mystic forces. If you put mystic spectacles over your eyes, you will begin to see gods and demons all nestling in the human heart. Ravana, in the form of ignorance and egoism, dominates the 10 indriyas or senses, 5 senses of action and 5 senses of karmendriya, the reason through which these senses operate. Gyanendriya and Karmendriya, we call them. Karma is action and Jnana is perception. So therefore, Rama is represented as having 10 heads, one for each. Some ancient works describe him with one more head, the head of a donkey, above the other 10 heads, showing that all those 10 heads, in spite of their immense brain power and intelligence, were ruled by ignorance. The Rajasic ego integrates these indriyas or senses into a movement that creates painful karmas and burdens the mind with afflictions or kleshas. The kleshas are 5: ignorance, avidya, asmita, egoism, raga, attachment, dvesha, hatred, and abhinivesha klesha, fear of death. This demoniac movement encompasses all 3 of the gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas. In a state of ignorance, sattva creates attachment to material objects or it stays latent. This subservience of sattva is dramatized by Vibhishana's friendliness to his brothers at first. Only when sattva turns in a divine direction, as Vibhishana turns to Rama, later in the Ramayana, when Ravana kicks him, throws his crown away, and sends him out of his kingdom, does it tear itself away from Rajas and Tamas. So, unless sattva is pulled out, it will continue to be subservient to Rajas and Tamas. These are very important concepts to understand because this story of Ramayana is the story of ourselves, of our body within, and how these different emotions, feelings, demoniac qualities, divine qualities, how they all come together within us. Man and monkeys refers to the mind and senses in a human being. These are the resources in the human embodiment which can be directed towards self effort and thus eventually help to bring about the destruction of Ravana or ignorance. So we will continue with this journey in tomorrow's satsang. This is Swami Nikhilananda. Om Tat Sat.